30 years. That was how long Jenna Cole had been haunted by a void in her life that she couldn't explain. Growing up in a small town outside of Chicago, she had always felt like something, or someone, was missing. She'd ask her parents, but they'd shrug off her feelings as overactive imagination or teenage angst. Yet, as Jenna grew older, the sense of incompleteness only intensified. It was like trying to remember a dream that was just out of reach. Now, at 35, with a family of her own and a job as a high school art teacher, Jenna still couldn't shake the nagging feeling. Something about her identity felt fractured, as though part of her life had been erased before she even knew it. It wasn't until her daughter, Emily, asked about their family tree for a school project that Jenna considered doing a DNA test. A DNA test? I don't know, sweetheart. What are you hoping to find? Jenna had asked with a soft chuckle, pulling her daughter onto her lap. Emily, all of 9 years old and full of curiosity, looked up at her mother with wide eyes. Well, I just want to know where we come from. Maybe we're part royalty or something cool? Jenna smiled. Royalty, huh? Well, I can't promise you that, but okay, we can try it. The test arrived in the mail a week later. Jenna spit into the vial, filled out the necessary paperwork, and sent it off. More out of curiosity than any real expectation of finding something remarkable. After all, she knew her family. Her parents had raised her with love, and she had never seriously doubted who they were. Yet, a small voice inside whispered that maybe, just maybe, this test would reveal something important. The results took nearly 2 months to arrive. By then, Jenna had all but forgotten about the test, busy with work and family life. When the email notification popped up on her phone one rainy afternoon, she clicked it absent-mindedly, expecting to see a breakdown of generic ancestry percentages, maybe a little Irish, a dash of German. But what she found was something she could never have anticipated. DNA match, immediate family member, 50% shared DNA. Jenna's heart raced as she stared at the screen. There, in bold letters, was a name she didn't recognize. Jessica Keller. Her mind scrambled to process the information. 50% shared DNA? That could only mean one thing. Siblings. Full siblings. The air around her seemed to thicken as the realization sank in. She had a sibling, one she had never known about. But how? Jenna's hands trembled as she clicked through to view more information. Jessica's profile was sparse, only listing basic details like her approximate age and a location, Los Angeles, California. Jenna blinked. Her entire life, she had thought she was an only child. Why had her parents never told her about this? She stood up quickly, pacing the living room, trying to make sense of what she had just discovered. The name didn't ring any bells, and there was no mistaking the overwhelming 50% DNA match. Could this Jessica be her sister? Or something more? It wasn't until Jenna's husband, Tom, returned home from work that evening that she found the courage to tell him. Tom, I think I have a twin, Jenna blurted out as soon as he walked through the door. Tom froze, his briefcase still in hand. What? A twin? Jenna? Slow down? What are you talking about? She thrust her phone toward him, showing him the DNA results. I got my DNA results back. And it says I have an immediate family member, someone named Jessica Keller. We share half of our DNA. Tom, that's a twin, right? Tom glanced at the phone, his face a mix of confusion and disbelief. Wait, so this Jessica? You've never heard of her before. How is this even possible? I don't know, Jenna cried, her voice rising. I mean, my parents never mentioned anything like this. But it says we're a match. How could they have kept something like this from me? Tom wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. Maybe it's a mistake, Jenna. Or maybe, I don't know. But we'll figure it out. That night, Jenna couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with 1,000 questions. Who was Jessica? How had they been separated? And why had her parents never told her? The next morning, without telling Tom or her daughter, she sent Jessica a message through the DNA testing platform. Hi, Jessica. My name is Jenna Cole. I just received my DNA results, and it seems we're an immediate match. This might sound strange, but I believe we could be related, maybe even twins. If you're open to it, I'd love to talk and learn more about you." Jenna hit send and stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The waiting was excruciating. Days passed with no response, and she began to doubt whether Jessica would ever reply. Maybe she wasn't interested in connecting, or maybe she didn't even check her messages. Jenna tried to push it from her mind, but it was impossible. A week later, her phone buzzed with a new notification. She glanced at the screen and froze. "Jessica Keller has responded to your message." With shaky hands, Jenna opened the app and read the reply. "Hi, Jenna. Wow, this is a shock. I saw the DNA match too, but I didn't know how to reach out. I think you might be right. I don't have much information about my birth family. I was adopted as a baby, and I never knew my biological parents. But I've always wondered if I had siblings. Maybe we should talk. Here's my number. Call me when you're ready." Jenna stared at the message, her heart racing. Adopted? How had her sister, if that's what Jessica was, ended up adopted while she had stayed with their biological parents? She didn't hesitate to dial the number Jessica had provided, her fingers trembling with anticipation. After a few rings, a voice answered. "Hello? This is Jessica." Jenna took a deep breath. "Hi, Jessica, this is Jenna. I guess I'm your sister." The line was silent for a moment before Jessica replied, her voice tinged with emotion. "Wow, this is really happening, huh? I never knew I had a sibling, let alone a twin." "Neither did I," Jenna said softly. "I've spent my whole life thinking I was an only child. I don't even know where to start." "Me neither," Jessica admitted with a nervous laugh. "But I guess we can start by figuring out how this all happened, why we were separated." "Do you know anything about your adoption?" Jenna asked cautiously. "No, not much," Jessica replied. "I was adopted by a wonderful family in California when I was just a few months old. They always told me I was adopted, but I never really looked into my biological family. Until now, I guess." Jenna's heart ached. "I had no idea. My parents never said anything about it. They've passed now. So I can't ask them, but I have to find out why. There has to be a reason." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Do you think it's possible they didn't know? If I was adopted, maybe they didn't know you had a twin?" Jenna's breath caught. Could that be it? Could her parents have never known? "I guess it's possible. I don't know, but I need to figure it out." Jessica's voice softened. "I'd like to meet you, Jenna. I feel like we need to meet face to face." Jenna smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'd love that." 2 weeks later, Jenna boarded a plane to Los Angeles, her stomach in knots. Tom had insisted on coming with her, but she had convinced him to stay home with Emily. This was something she needed to do on her own. As the plane descended over the California coast, her mind swirled with excitement, fear, and hope. What would it be like to meet her twin after all these years? Would they be alike? Different? Would they even feel a connection? When Jenna arrived at the airport terminal, she scanned the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest, and then she saw her, Jessica, standing nervously by the baggage claim, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exactly like Jenna, but not. They shared the same eyes, the same smile. But there were differences too. Jessica was slightly taller, her features a bit sharper. Jenna's breath hitched as she approached, and for a moment, the two women just stood there, staring at each other in disbelief. Finally, Jessica broke the silence. "I can't believe it," she whispered. "You look just like me." Jenna laughed, though her voice was thick with emotion. "I was just thinking the same thing." Without another word, they hugged. It wasn't awkward or forced. It felt natural, as though they had always known each other. Jenna and Jessica spent every waking moment together, learning about each other's lives, marveling at their similarities and differences. They shared the same love of art, the same quirks, the same habit of biting their nails when they were nervous. But there were also differences. Jessica was more spontaneous, adventurous, while Jenna was more reserved, thoughtful. But the most pressing question remained. Why had they been separated? Jenna had brought her parents' old documents with her, hoping to find answers. Together, they pored over birth certificates, adoption papers, and medical records. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. It turned out that Jenna and Jessica had been born prematurely, and complications during the birth had separated them. Jessica had been rushed to a specialized hospital for emergency care, while Jenna had remained with their mother. In the confusion, their mother, who had been critically ill at the time, was told that Jessica hadn't survived. Meanwhile, Jessica had recovered but had been placed into the adoption system after a series of bureaucratic errors. Their mother, devastated by the news of her supposed loss, had never questioned it. By the time the mistake was discovered, it was too late. Jessica had already been adopted by a family on the other side of the country. As the full story unfolded, Jenna and Jessica sat in stunned silence. "All this time," Jenna murmured, "all this time, we were out there, living separate lives, and neither of us knew." Jessica wiped away tears, her voice trembling. "I'm just glad we found each other now. It doesn't matter how much time we lost. What matters is that we're together now," Jenna nodded, overwhelmed by the weight of their discovery. "You're right. We can't change the past, but we can build the future." The weeks that followed were filled with joy and healing. Jenna and Jessica made plans to introduce each other to their families, to integrate their lives in a way that made up for the lost time. They knew they couldn't undo the years of separation, but they could move forward, together. The void she had carried for so long was finally filled, not just by the discovery of her twin, but by the knowledge that family, whether lost or found, was the most precious gift of all. In the end, it wasn't a DNA test that reunited Jenna and Jessica. It was fate, pulling them back together after 30 years apart, reminding them that even the most broken threads can be rewoven into something beautiful.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.